Hello everyone, Alauder here, and today I'm going to be doing a guide for the Pure Vessel. So first let's start off with the charms. These are the charms I would recommend: Shaman Stone, Quick Slash, Spell Twister, Unbreakable Strength. I'll talk about some of your other options very quickly. So first of all we have Steady Body. Now this will help with one thing, but if you're not used to Steady Body it won't be good. So if you are used to Steady Body you can give it a try, but if you're not, I wouldn't recommend it. Then we have the nail range charms, and so now oftentimes you might think of nail range charms as safety charms, but I actually think of them as damage charms, and here's why. Is the range will let you get in more hits. You can hit him more of the time. So if you play the same way and just try and hit him more because you have the nail range charms, that works, but I think the charms we currently have on are a little better and will help you do a little more damage. So the next popular charm I need to talk about, Sharp Shadow. Oftentimes people say that's pretty good for this fight. I personally would have to disagree though, because the problem with Sharp Shadow is unless you're very disciplined with using it, it can screw you up, and this is one of the more punishing fights for it. So I personally would not use it, but you can if you want, feel free of course. So now let's get into his moves. And so the Pure Vessel has a number of moves really, and so the first ones are his movement ones. So he can either teleport or jump or walk around basically, and so this is not too important really. Like, the main one you have to watch out for is the teleport, because if, like, basically it means you can't really go for heals in this fight. I would actually not recommend going for heals in this fight at all. I would just, when he's in the stagger, just hit him out of it, because you can get soul for that. But you can heal if you want. I would only recommend healing when you're on even health. But you really cannot heal at all when he is not staggered. Maybe you can when he does his heal, but we'll get to that later. So now let's go through his attacks. So first of all, we have soul daggers. So he's going to go to one of the edges and basically try and gun you down. And so you have a few options for this. You can either D-Dark through it if you're not feeling confident. I would highly not recommend doing this though. This is kind of a panic option. You can D-Dash through it and then get to him. And so I actually have a bit of an advanced tactic. You're going to want to try and D-Dash into him. Not into him. Like right in front of him. Hit him once or twice depending on how much time you have. You kind of just need to get a feel for that. And then D-Dark, and this will basically provide you safety as well. You can get screwed if he does his parry attack, because your D-Dark will activate it. But other than that, it will give you protection from if he does a triple slash or a lunge right away. So you can also try and just straight up dodge it if your Shadow Dash is on cooldown. And how I would recommend doing that is stay near the ground and either do a small hop to get over it, or go under it, and that will work for all of it basically. So his next attack is the triple slash, and so the triple slash is actually one of his scariest attacks. Again, you have three options. You can either go over him or through him with either D-Dark or D-Dash, and so he swings his nail 3 times, but it's really more like the first two kind of blend together. And so this attack, he has a very wide and tall hitbox, so you do have to be careful when dashing through him you don't get clipped by the back end of it. And same with, not so much with D-Dark, because you have more invulnerability time. I would really recommend D-Darking through this attack. I feel like that's the best way to do it. So here's one thing. This attack is very deceptive because He's just swinging a sword, and especially on the first two swings, he doesn't move that far, but he covers a massive distance. I would say almost half of the whole arena with his swings, so if you think you're safe, you probably aren't. His next attack is the Soul Pillar one. He's either going to jump on top of you or teleport on top of you and then slam to the ground. And so now, after that, pillars of basically spikes will come up and try and impale you. And so here I'm going to recommend a pretty advanced tactic, which is you're just going to want to move the right amount. It will be a very little amount. So you're between the pier vessel and one of the closest pillars. And so, now I'm not going to lie, this is not very easy when you're first starting out on the boss, and this will take time to learn. But I think this is the most worth thing learning in this whole fight. Like, it matters more to be good at this than to be good at any other phase, because you can get a lot of damage in. You can get you can get 3 hits in, which also gives you another activation of D-Dark. So, I would really recommend learning it. If you aren't learning it, then I really would recommend learning it. But if you aren't learning it, just try and dodge by going to the further out ones, because the closer ones to him, because he takes up some of the real estate in there, are a little harder to dodge. And so, this attack you also have to watch out for is you can't go in the air too much, or he could teleport literally right on top of you. So you want to stay, you don't want to pogo off him too much. Like when he's lunging, I would say just jump over him, which is his next attack. He'll lunge, which basically stabs half of the arena. This is a pretty easy one. I wouldn't recommend using a D-Dark on this. I would just recommend D-dashing through him or jumping over him. With your wings, you don't need to parry or pogo off him. You will if you triple slash, but you really have to watch out for the soul parry, because he jumps high, so he can jump right on top of you. And so then finally, parry. Parry is a massive pain in the ass. That's all this attack is, because you're going to want to be spamming him most of the time, and if he parries, you'll get hit a lot of the time. Honestly, I think it's still worth spamming, because I've found that he does parries fairly rarely, and when he does parries, he often does them like 2 or 3 in a row. Although I have no data backing this, that's just personal experience. So yeah, I really recommend just spamming him anyways, and if he does parry, just try and spam your dash to try and get through him. A lot of the time you're going to take damage, but not spamming him means you give up so much damage, it's not worth it. Next attack, we have his focus attack. And so, he's going to focus his soul, and he's going to make a big circle around him and smaller circles around. So now, if you are healing, now's your time to heal. But again, I wouldn't recommend that at all. So, this is actually one of the easiest ones to dodge, one of the weakest attacks he has. And it's the best one for damage. I said soul pairs were the best before. They are, but that's because he only uses this one when he's at 2/3 health. And so, basically how you do this is, oh sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I remember. Is you just want to walk up to him, D-Dark, and this will let you just spam the shit out of him. Because he spends so long doing this attack, if you just go up to him, maybe hit him once or twice depending on how much time D-Dark threw him. You do have to learn the timing of this. A lot of it is learning timing and things like that for this fight. Then you can just spam him and get almost 5 hits, which is basically 2 D-Darks. And so his final attack happens when he's at 33% health. And what he's gonna do is he's gonna open up his stomach and then shoot void at you. And this is by far his hardest attack, and here's why. you can't pogo off of the tendrils, and they cover more area than any other attack. So the best strategy is just trying to run away from him, or to try and stall it out with jumps. But if you're already in the air or out of position, when he does this, you're pretty much screwed. So what you're going to want to do is, I'll take a screenshot of him doing it, if you're like about halfway out of it, you're going to want to just D-dart through, D-dart down, and then just try and badly dash while you still have invulnerability to get out of it. You can also, conversely, actually use an Abyss Shriek to gain more airtime. I don't do this too much, because it's a little risky that he can Soul Pillars right after it, but it can work. And so that's most of his attacks, really, actually, all of his attacks. I'll give you some quick clues, helpful things about the fight. One, soul is incredibly important to manage your soul economy. You're going to want to use basically all of your soul on D-Dark. Abyss Shriek is never really, you never get an opportunity to do it in this fight. Shade Soul just doesn't do enough damage to be worth using. It does like one nail hit of damage, whereas Abyss Shriek is just so much better, because usually when you use it, you'll get like probably at least the same amount of damage as the Shade Soul, and you also get invulnerability. Another thing to watch out for is when you stagger him, he kind of falls forwards a bit, so you can get hit by his head while he's falling over, and this is not that much of a problem, but it's incredibly tilting when it happens. Yeah. And so then the final thing is to really learn the timing of your Shadow Dash. And so just to manage that with your D-Dark as well, because if you have no Soul to D-Dark and no Shadow Dash up, you basically are guaranteed to take damage, unless you're pretty good. So most of it is just D-Darking to get hits in, to get more soul, to D-Dark again, and then also D-Dashing. So that's the majority of how I like to play the fight. If you want to do it differently, feel free. I think that's just the easiest strategy to do it as a new player. And yeah, this boss is a real pain, one of the worst bosses in the game, and especially because it's so far near the end, a real big disappointment. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. If you feel like subscribing or liking, I'd really appreciate that. If you want to comment on something, I'd love that as well. And just thank you so much for watching.